50 years ago, a landmark law was passed. The Oregon Safe Employment Act created a seismic shift in advancing workplace safety and health for Oregon workers. The law replaced what had been piecemeal efforts with a comprehensive program to shield workers from harm while on the job. What we know today as the Oregon Occupational Safety and Health Division, Oregon OSHA, was born from the 1973 Oregon Safe Employment Act. This law authorizes Oregon OSHA to enforce on-the-job safety and health requirements, obligates employers to educate and train their workers, and requires employers to comply with the rules that apply to their workplace. Oregon's law was part of a larger shift at the federal level. The groundbreaking passage of the 1970 Occupational Safety and Health Act authorized the federal government to set and enforce safety and health requirements across the United States.
I think the history of Oregon OSHA is a little bit unique because the act was passed in 1973, and that put us on the course toward the success that we have now. But really, the workers' compensation reforms that came out of the Mahonia-Hall agreements were a turning point, and in a sense were the real creation of Oregon OSHA. As you probably know, before that, we actually still called ourselves the Accident Prevention Division. Oregon OSHA wasn't just a name change, it was a bit of a change in perspective, and we became stronger in our enforcement. We also emphasized education and consultation, and that was part of a package deal. And one of the things that is striking is when you look at the injury and illness rates, and when you look at the fatality rates, they had continued to ratchet up really until those reforms took place, and then they began a steady decline that continued for the next quarter of a century.
Oregon, I feel, has always had a very strong safety and health regulatory presence. From 1915, the State Industrial Accident Commission was founded, and they were the first group to regulate safety and health in Oregon, and they did that right up until 1989. But in 1970, when President Nixon signed the OSHA Act, it superseded all state safety and health plans at the time and said that all plans had to meet or exceed the federal guidelines. In 1973, Oregon became the second state in the union to have a state-run OSHA program, and we've been doing that ever since, but at the time it was the Accident Prevention Division.
Under agreement with the federal government decades ago, Oregon is certified to run its own workplace safety and health program. This enables Oregon OSHA to tailor programs and services to the unique needs of workers and employers in the state, while also fulfilling its obligations to federal OSHA.
I don't think there's a better thing that you can do as in an organization than be the one that can help build programs and influence programs and be a resource so that people don't get hurt. The best thing about being in the health and safety profession is that you have a resource right there that's willing to help in Oregon OSHA. They are there and ready to provide you information, help you understand the things that you need to implement. And it's free. The people that work there have knowledge in the industry. They've been where the health and safety people in industry have been. Most of them have come from industry. But then you can go to the website, you can come into the offices, there's written materials, there's streaming now videos online that you can use from Oregon OSHA. It makes it very, very easy to do your job as a health and safety person in Oregon. And I think we're very fortunate to have that. And I hope that as time goes, that Oregon OSHA continues to build on those consultative services, because as a health and safety professional, I lean on those a lot, and I have leaned on them a lot throughout my career.
Oregon OSHA's creativity, talent, and hard work comes from the people who carry out its mission of advancing and improving safety and health for all workers in Oregon. The compliance officers, consultants, technical specialists, administrative staff, lab technicians, conference organizers, education developers, managers, and many others all drive Oregon OSHA forward. Oregon OSHA carries out its work through unannounced inspections of workplaces, free and confidential consultations with employers, technical guidance to explain safety and health rules, and robust public education, outreach, and training efforts.
Oregon OSHA is often perceived as a regulatory agency, and we are. But we are so much more than that. We also offer free, confidential consultative services where our safety and health professionals go out to employers and help them navigate their safety and health needs, as well as public education services with online trainings, in-person trainings, and publications. We also offer technical services that allow employers and employees to ask questions directly related to the regulations.
We are a regulatory agency. First and foremost, that is our mission. We were put on the face of the earth to regulate safety and health in the state of Oregon. I think what a lot of employers and employees may not understand well is that we have a very strong public education section. We have a very strong conferences section. We also have a very strong consultative section that really were put in place to help employers to learn how to better manage safety and health.
Oregon OSHA's work has helped create safer and healthier workplaces and reduced human suffering. The numbers on illness and injury rates in Oregon are clear. From 1990 to 2021, injury and illness rates have dropped by more than 60%, and fatality rates have dropped by more than 50%. The truth is obvious. Safe and healthy workplaces are good for workers, their families, and friends, and good for the diverse communities they call home.
I think some of the largest contributions Oregon OSHA has had in improving workers' lives comes down to some of the different rules that we've promulgated and have been able to help employers find controls for different hazards. Oregon OSHA took a lead in the nation to create confined space rules that also applied to construction, and I believe we probably saved lives in doing that. Another rule that we promulgated that I think was really critical here in Oregon is we recently created a heat illness prevention rule. Over the years, it certainly seems like it's getting hotter out, and every single year we have workers dying and being hospitalized from heat-related illnesses. When we created these rules and gave specific guidelines about what needed to be done, and then made specific effort to do outreach and to make sure that we were evaluating heat illness prevention methods on inspections, we were able to reach out and make heat illness prevention more real and effective for many workers.
Importantly, preventing injuries and illnesses is also good for employers and the Oregon economy. Oregon OSHA's accident prevention efforts have, for decades, contributed to some of the lowest workers' compensation rates in the United States. In 2023, employers in Oregon paid, on average, just 93 cents per $100 of payroll for workers' compensation costs. As it pursued its mission, Oregon OSHA has successfully adapted to legislative changes and the needs of the people it serves. Those changes include strengthening the division's non-enforcement programs for employers, including free and confidential consultation services. To this day, employers seeking to improve their safety and health programs call on Oregon OSHA consultants for help.
Over the years, Oregon OSHA has undergone a number of changes, and some of the highlights would be through Mahonia Hall, the reform of workers' compensation, as well as hiring more consultation and enforcement staff to help employers and employees focus on their safety and health.
In my opinion, the most important changes that the agency has gone through in the last 30 years is really the strengthening of consultation and voluntary services. I think that employers who want to get better are the people who are willing to work with consultation and work with public education. They're looking for ways to get better.
Another turning point in Oregon OSHA's history came in 1990. Major legislative reforms, known as the Mahonia Hall reforms, revamped the workers' compensation system. Joint labor and management safety committees were established, and the law put more compliance officers and consultants in the field to bolster safety and health. Oregon OSHA underwent another evolution in the mid-1990s with two significant programs: the Safety and Health Achievement Recognition Program, SHARP, and the Voluntary Protection Program, VPP. These programs continue to help employers go beyond mere compliance with safety and health rules.
So I'm asked all the time, how does SHARP and VPP benefit employers? Both programs, I feel, are very much a roadmap that gives companies a clear path to how they can get better. And it's not getting better at safety and health, it's getting better at managing their own safety and health. SHARP is designed for the majority of Oregon employers to teach them how to function at a higher level. VPP is the cream of the crop. SHARP is a good way to get to VPP. People ask me all the time, are the two programs connected? They're both voluntary, but they're not really connected. SHARP is a consultation-funded program. VPP is an enforcement-funded program. In Oregon, the SHARP Alliance has positioned itself to become a networking organization between SHARP companies and VPP companies. And it's been a very successful venture, and I think it's going to continue.
Oregon OSHA focuses on relationships to ensure long-term success, engaging with labor and business stakeholders and Rule Advisory Committee partnerships. Oregon OSHA believes proactive engagement leads to well-informed decisions and sound public policy. The division continues its drive forward with an expanded focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, expanding outreach to vulnerable worker populations. These include worker listening sessions, workplace rights videos in multiple languages, Spanish and Russian language educational materials, and statewide safety conferences delivered entirely in Spanish.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion is important to Oregon OSHA because everyone's life matters. We need to continue to focus our lens of enforcement, consultation, and training opportunities through that perspective to ensure we're reaching all communities.
I think that the diversity in our workforce here at Oregon OSHA makes us better at what we do. For well over a decade, when we have been recruiting for employees, we have placed a strong emphasis on hiring folks who are bilingual and folks who would make our workforce look more like our stakeholders, whether they're employers or employees. Because when we are able to communicate and understand different cultures and workers better, we're going to be much better at understanding what the hazards are, what their concerns are, and addressing those and helping to make the workplace safer.
These outreach efforts to vulnerable populations come with a focus on two simple yet profound elements of the Oregon Safe Employment Act. Workers have a right to a safe and healthy workplace and a right to speak about hazards without fear of retaliation. Oregon OSHA has adopted some of the smartest and most progressive safety and health rules in the nation and is a national leader in safety and health standards. The division has adopted rules setting high standards in reducing worker exposure to pesticides, manganese, excessive heat, and wildfire smoke. Today, Oregon OSHA serves almost 2 million workers at over 170,000 businesses across the state.
Over the last 50 years, Oregon OSHA has grown tremendously. We have lots of opportunities to help employers and employees navigate safety and health hazards. Some of the accomplishments that we have are the advancement towards reducing workers' compensation costs and implementing new field staff to help get to those workplaces in most need.
It's hard to focus on a particular accomplishment and say that that's my proudest. There are others. There's certainly rules that we've adopted along the way, but I suppose if I really had to name one thing I was proudest of, it's the Spanish Language Workers Conference that we launched in 2019. We had to put off the 2020 event, but I really think that's groundbreaking, not only in Oregon, but around the nation.
As we celebrate Oregon OSHA's 50th anniversary, the successes are many, but the challenges remain. The stewardship of Oregon OSHA and its partners in safety, employers, and workers shines a spotlight on the 50 years of success. Their ongoing work lights the way to success in the decades to come.
Over the last 50 years, Oregon OSHA has made some incredible strides towards safety and health. However, our work is not done. We need to continue to move into the future and drive injury and illnesses rates down. Oregon chose to be a state plan. We chose this because we are unique, and we can recognize the unique industries that we represent through our rulemaking efforts as well as our training opportunities. As we look back over the 50 years, we've made some incredible accomplishments. We have to look forward to the next 50 years. There's work to be done, and we are going to dedicate our resources to protect workers to where no one dies on the job.